During the earthquake and drought, Lin Xiaoman and his siblings were separated by their parents and moved into a collapsed old house. Why has the wardrobe at home become a shuttle door to modernity? Modern times are rich in resources and easy to make money, but why does everyone love to eat the wild vegetables and mushrooms that they only go up the mountain to pick in disaster years? The siblings had a sudden idea and embarked on a business path of buying and selling at a loss. Plant corn, potatoes, and promote cotton, so that the people of the world can have enough to eat and wear warm clothes. Plant chili peppers, plant fruits and melons, and make delicious food, bringing in a wealth of gold and silver treasures. Too famous and powerful, it has become a coveted item in the eyes of the emperor. The prince and princess can easily choose from it. Oh my, how dare that rogue county magistrate who comes all day to eat and drink at home rush into the palace and rob people. Lin Xiaoman was so anxious that he was going bald, but the county magistrate shook his body and transformed into a python robe, wearing a purple and gold crown on his head. When the prince and princess saw him, they would call out to little uncle keywords of the novel. After family separation, my wardrobe is connected to modern times without pop-ups. After family separation, my wardrobe is connected to modern times. Download the full collection of Modern TXT. After family separation, my wardrobe is connected to modern times. Read the latest chapters. Chapter 1. Siblings divided into families. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. Siblings divided into families. Earthquakes and droughts have left the fields without any harvest. Lin Xiaoman has just passed away his parents, and now he is being criticized by his parents for dragging oil bottles and shouting to the main hall to split the family. Mrs. Lin coughed and her body shook twice. She knocked on the dry tobacco bag on the sole of her shoe and immediately spoke, "There's something I need to say to gather you all together this morning. There are only more than 300 gene of grain left at home. There are more than a dozen mouths in the family, big or small. It's hard to say whether we can survive this winter, let alone the next autumn harvest. Your mother and I want to starve to death together. It's better to divide the family. In the future, eating bran, eating vegetables or eating rice, noodles and manta depends on our own ability. Your father is right. We are all old and can't take care of this big family, especially those who work lazily and don't have enough food." Lin Laotai said, her big eyes fixed on Lin Xiaoman and Lin Xiaoman's siblings. "Your parents left early, and it's not easy for our family now. Even at the age of 16, Xiaoman refuses to get married, and our family can't afford so many idle people. Don't blame me for my parents' ruthlessness. 300 pounds of grain will be divided into 13 portions according to the head of the family, and your sisters will take 2 portions. The house at home was built after your parents passed away, so don't think about it. Later, you will move to the old house and the 2 acres of land in front of the door will be allocated to you." Lin Xiaoman tilted his eyes and said, "Milk, if you want to separate me from my sister, just say it directly. There's no need to criticize me. What does it mean to be lazy while working? What does it mean not having enough food to eat? When did you buy meat and chicken? Didn't you send me and my sister out? My sister is 16 years old, but our parents died last year to save our parents' milk. We are still filial, so you forced my sister to marry an elderly widower in her 30s. There's no such thing as that. You said my sister eats a lot, why don't you say my sister is strong and can handle 3 good old men with just 1 job? I couldn't do the work in the fields when I was young, but I didn't carry the firewood back from the mountain. On the other hand, Uncle's family went down to the ground 10 times and couldn't find anyone. Why don't you say that? We can't just splash dirty water on us without the support of our parents." Lin Xiaoman's mouth thumped and he was so angry that Uncle Lin patted the table and said, "Little brat, did you talk to your elders like this? What does it mean that you can't find anyone after 10 visits? Your cousin is studying in the academy, and you still want him to put down his studies and become a muddy leg." "Humph, my cousin is studying, and uncle and aunt are also studying. Cousins and cousins are also studying. Besides, isn't that why milk first splashed dirty water on our siblings? As a younger generation, all learn from milk. Mrs. Lin patted her thigh and howled, "Oh my goodness, he's blaming me and the old man for killing his parents. My second son is also the flesh that fell off my body. Don't I feel any pain in my heart? What harm did I do? If I had known that my second wife gave birth to this thing, she should have drowned in the urine can when she was born. There's no need to wait for the soil to bury half of it and still suffer from this bird-like smell." Lin Eru still had to speak, and Lin Xiaoman pulled at the corner of his clothes behind him, gesturing for him not to say anything. Lin Eru obediently closed his mouth and angrily turned his head to the side. Lin Xiaoman stood up and gave blessings to Mrs. Lin and Mr. Lin, saying, "Grandpa, since you have already decided to divide the family, it's useless for me and Erhu to say anything. It's better to choose a day than to collide with the other day. I'll go and invite the clan leader to be a witness. I'll listen to the clan leader's advice on how to divide this family." Mrs. Lin stopped howling immediately and said, "Dividing the family is our own business. What kind of clan leader should we invite? Your foolish father, who is the clan leader, is facing you. How dare you have a lion's mouth wide open? I'll add some more and gather 60 pounds of food for you. There won't be any extra 1 or 2. Lin Xiaoman smiled faintly and said, "It's okay not to invite the clan leader. In addition to 60 pounds of grain, we also have to take my mother's dowry with us. The stepping bed in the master's milk room, the cabinets in the uncles' and aunts' rooms, the tables and chairs in the third uncle's and third aunt's rooms, as well as an iron pot and a copper basin. Why don't you go grab it?" Mrs. Lin jumped 3 feet high, her eyes staring like copper bells. "Once you enter the Lin family, your mother belongs to the Lin family. There's no way you want to take it away." Lin Xiaoman was not angry either, he just smiled and said, "According to the law of this court, if the mother is gone, the dowry should be inherited by the parents and daughters. Our house is not extinct, and if the nurse refuses to return her dowry, we can only ask the clan leader to preside over justice. I have the dowry list of my mother when she married into the Lin family. In addition to what I said, there are also 8 whole dowries. The silver hairpin on the nipple, the gold dot-plated sun on the aunt's hand, the bracelet in the cousin's dowry, and the 30-acre paddy field planted by the Lin family. When the clan leader arrives, I will take the list. Come out 1 pair at a time, and then go to my cousin's-in-law's house for a pair." Mrs. Lin wanted to touch the silver hairpin on her head. Since her second wife was gone, she had taken over her second wife's dowry. When did she go out and wear this silver hairpin without being envied or jealous? It's still impossible, there's no door. The old lady's face turned red as she held it back, and in the end, she only cursed, "Here you are. Here you are. You are. You disobedient and unfilial dog thing." The news of the Lin family splitting up early in the morning quickly spread throughout Hedong village. Former clan leader Lin Yuan received the news and brought his current clan leader's son Lin Daqiang, along with several sturdy farmers, to catch up with his family's ox cart and come to help. Lin Eru was directing the movement of boxes, cabinets, and beds in the yard, while Lin Xiaoman was busy packing her and Lin Eru's tattered clothes. When their parents passed away, their siblings only focused on sadness. How could they have expected that Yinai, who always had a sweet mouth, would not be a good person? When I regained my senses, my mother's dowry was hidden, and to the public, I only said I couldn't find it. That day, there were too many people coming and going in and out of the house, and Lin Xiaoman and his siblings didn't expect that their parents risked their lives to save Yinai, who was not a human and only treated everything as stolen. If it weren't for last year's cousin getting married, she would have seen something from her mother in the dowry and couldn't believe that Grandpa's milk could have done such a thing. Finally, Lin Xiaoman only packed out 2 bags of torn clothes. Although they couldn't be worn anymore, using them as a cloth wouldn't be cheap here. When Lin Yuang came over, Lin Eru ran over and said, "Second grandpa, my grandma said you're an old fool and won't let me and my sister come to you to make decisions." Lin Yuang was so angry that his nose was crooked that he stood in the yard and cursed loudly, "You two are old and immortal. You have all lived in vain for a long time. It wasn't when your second wife married in that year that your whole family didn't know where to beg for food. Now that the couple is trying to save you too, you bully their children and are not afraid that the second wife will come up to settle accounts with you in the middle of the night." Although Lin Yuang has not been a clan leader for many years, the current clan leader is his son. When jumping and cursing, Lin Old Man and Lin Old Lady hide in the house and dare not reply. Mrs. Lin looked at the bed that had been torn apart by the carpenter and felt heartbroken. "A good bed, but it's not bad, so we just moved it away like this. What can we do then? If we don't allow the bed to be moved and then ask for your second wife's dowry from you. The damn little beasts were all learned from their mother, the little prostitute he sure. We shouldn't have let the little prostitute give birth to them in the beginning." Mrs. Lin's mouth was full of little prostitutes, and she listened to the buzzing of her brain seeds. Outside, Lin Yuang was also cursing. "Where can we find a quiet place to go?" End of this chapter. Chapter 2. There are supernatural powers in the wardrobe. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. There are supernatural powers in the wardrobe. When Lin Xiaoman finished packing up and came out, the bed over there was also dismantled. Lin Yuang called out and a group of men from the village came over to move things onto his cart. In addition to the few types and 60 kilograms of grain that Lin Xiaoman requested, the clan leader Lin Daqiang took charge and brought 2 large vats and 2 cotton quilts to Lin Xiaoman's siblings. He also had people carry the firewood from the firewood room. I forced Mrs. Lin to give me 200 won again. Finally, in the midst of Mrs. Lin's fierce competition, she wrote down the separation document and had both parties press their fingerprints. From then on, Lin Xiaoman's siblings and the old Lin family were completely separated, and the two of them made a living on their own. The old couple didn't have to worry about taking care of their own lives. Watching the things being pulled away by the ox cart, Mrs. Lin squatted in the yard with heartache and slapped her thighs. She let out a loud cry and laughed heartily as she watched the excitement. On the way, Lin Eru approached Lin Xiaoman and said, "Sister, my milk is also quite cruel to her. That leg needs to be bruised today. No matter how painful her legs are, they can't match her heartache." Lin Xiaoman concealed the coldness in her eyes. She had a brain and strength, and with Lin Eru, a well-behaved and obedient younger brother, life would only get better and better. Although she was afraid that one day she would have to split up and be sold by that family, she still had to retrieve the things that belonged to their siblings that remained in the Lin family. Last night, Dog Egg and I both lay outside the window and saw that Milk was hiding inside counting money, several tens of taels, all of which were my mother's dowry. She also said that grain prices will definitely rise this year, and when we are separated, all the silver will be used to buy grain. We will hoard a lot of it and sell it when the grain price rises. Gooden is the cousin of the uncle's family, and since childhood, he has not been very clever. He was often teased by Eru and turned his elbow out, so he was often beaten and scolded by his parents. Lin Yuang sighed and said, "Your parents are both capable, but unfortunately good people don't last long. Last year, when the Earth Dragon turned over, they shouldn't have used their own lives to save those 2 elderly immortals. This time, you specified that you were at a loss, and second grandpa can't help more. If you really can't get by in the future, just find second grandpa and your big strong uncle. Second grandpa and big strong uncle have a stuttering, and they won't let you go hungry." Lin Xiaoman and Lin Eru thanked Lin Yuang, as well as Lin Daqiang, the clan leader who has been frowning since becoming the clan leader. Last year, the Earth Dragon overturned and the old houses at the west end of the village were severely damaged. Those who have extra money at home have all gone to the east end of the village to build new houses, while only a few households who are really poor and unable to make a living still live in dilapidated houses in the west of the village. The Lin family's house, except for the west wing where Lin Xiaoman and his family used to live, only had a crack in the wall, and both the main and east wing houses collapsed. If it weren't for Lin Xiaoman's parents rushing into the main room to save Lin Laotu and Lin Laotai, it would have been Lin Laotu and Lin Laotai who died. Looking at how they treated the siblings this year, the villagers would have scolded them for not dying if they walked face to face. Moving things into the house, the carpenter and his men pieced together the bed. The bamboo bed was made by Xiaoman's family and hired a carpenter from the city. This skill has long been eye-catching by the carpenters in the village. The carpenter personally dismantled and reassembled the previous move and the current split, and was confident that they could fight a similar fight. Unfortunately, no one in the village is willing to spend a lot of money to make a bed, and I don't know if there is still a chance in this life. The siblings had just separated and didn't have much money, and the villagers sympathized with them. They helped and left without even taking a sip of water. 60 kilograms of grain won't make it to the Chinese New Year. Lin Xiaoman felt that his siblings would start going to the mountains tomorrow to see if they could mix some wild vegetables with the grain and eat them together. At least they had to endure this winter. At noon, after cooking a pot of congee that is so thin that it can be seen at the bottom, the sister and brother began to clean the house. No one has lived in the house for over a year, and a thick layer of dust has fallen on the house. There are also many spider webs hanging on the walls. Lin Xiaoman tore off an old piece of clothes and wiped the wardrobe. When he rubbed against the cabinet door, he was accidentally scratched by something. Immediately, blood came out, and a drop even dripped onto the door. Lin Xiaoman stuffed his fingers into his mouth and tried to wipe the blood off the door with a rag, but was stunned by the scene before him. The wardrobe, which was originally empty in front of her, has now changed its appearance. With the cabinet door as the boundary, there is Lin Xiaoman's house outside, but inside it is a colorful wall. There is a row of neatly trimmed flowers and plants in front of the wall, that looks so beautiful. Strange and melodious music drifted through the door. Lin Xiaoman cautiously stepped into the door and found himself in that unfamiliar place. Looking back, I saw the door where I came out. Inside the door frame, I could see my own house, while outside the door frame, I could see the unfamiliar world where I was standing, and the door stood out of nowhere. On the flat grassland, deciduous cedars grow one by one, and further away, there is a pond, which is also filled with beautiful flowers. A flat ground with many shelves on it. Some children sit swinging on the swing, others slide down on it, and a few children jump up and down on a soft platform, each time they can jump a few feet high. These children dress strangely, but their laughter is clear and pleasant to the ear. Standing next to them were men and women who were also dressed strangely. The men's hair was cut short, and there were not many women who had long hair, with many revealing their arms and legs. Lin Xiaoman has no eyes. Are the people here not afraid of being vulgar in this way? Further away, towering square buildings stand tall, resembling but not like towers. Lin Xiaoman looked around for a while before realizing that there was a black box on a large tree next to him, and the melodious music came from inside. Lin Xiaoman was still hesitating whether to take a few steps forward and then take a look when he heard Lin Eru's call, "Sister, sister, where have you been?" Lin Xiaoman looked inside the door and saw Lin Eru anxiously calling out, walking back and forth in front of the door, as if he couldn't see her standing outside the door. Lin Xiaoman called out, "Hu, sister is here." Lin Eru didn't seem to hear him, so he ran into the yard and continued to shout for someone. Lin Xiaoman quickly walked back to the cabinet door and shouted, "Hu, sister is inside." Lin Eru heard his sister's voice and ran back with a thud. He saw Lin Xiaoman standing in the room with a suspicious expression. "Sister, where did you just go?" "I've been searching inside for a while." Lin Xiaoman turned around and pointed to the cabinet, asking, "What are you looking at here?" Lin Eru approached the cabinet and looked for a long time without seeing anything. He didn't even look in and said, "Sister, what do you want me to see?" "There's nothing inside." Lin Xiaoman understood that it should be her blood sticking to the wardrobe door that caused the anomaly, and Lin Eru needs to be bled. Without saying a word, Lin Xiaoman walked into her torn bag, took out a thread board, pulled out a needle from the thread board, grabbed Lin Eru's hand, and pricked it on the tip of her index finger. Lin Eru let out a growl, so painful that he wanted to retract his hand, but not as strong as his sister. He grinned bitterly and said, "Sister, why are you poking me so hard?" Lin Xiaoman didn't answer and waited for blood droplets to emerge. He grabbed his hand and pressed it against the cabinet door. Lin Eru had a gloomy expression on his face, and soon he saw that the originally empty wardrobe had changed its shape, causing Lin Eru's mouth to open wide and unable to close for half a day. "Oh my God, what is this? Peach Blossom Land." After finishing speaking, he was about to rush inside and was grabbed by Lin Xiaoman's collar. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. It's another unfamiliar word. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. It's another unfamiliar word. Lin Xiaoman, with great strength, put Lin Eru back in place like a chicken. "Don't worry, move the cabinet to a different position first," he said. Just now she took a look over there, and there was a big tree about 5 steps east. The door was open there, and there was a big tree blocking it. If she went further, she was not afraid of being seen as haunted. "I just don't know if the cabinet here has been moved, will the position over there be affected?" The siblings lifted the cabinet to one side and moved it 5 steps east. As expected, the scene inside also changed. It can be seen that moving the cabinet on one side also moved the position of the door on the other side. Lin Eru walked in front and back into the cabinet, and when he turned around to look at the door, it happened to be on the tree trunk. Lin Xiaoman took Lin Eru's hand and solemnly instructed, "Don't let go. Don't run around. Don't talk around." Lin Eru is shy. He is 11 years old and can be considered a half-grown boy in the village. How could a half-grown boy be held in hand when going out? Seeing Lin Xiaoman reach out to the belt around his waist because he didn't nod, is this to tie him to his waistband? "Sister, I won't let go, I won't let go," said Lin Xiaoman, holding onto his hand. Lin Xiaoman was satisfied and walked towards the crowded place holding his hand. Before approaching, Lin Eru could smell the burnt meat fragrance floating in the air, and with a gulp, he swallowed his saliva. No wonder he is greedy. When his parents were around, their family ate meat almost every day, but since their parents passed away, neither of them has eaten meat for over a year. Lin Xiaoman looked towards the direction where the fragrance was drifting, and there was a strange cart with a transparent box on top. Inside the box, there were several rows of long round bars and round food rolling. A sound came from the black box. "Roast sausages, fish balls, 2 yuan per string." Lin Xiaoman guessed that the long ones should be sausages, and the round ones should be fish balls. They are all strung together like tomatoes on sticks. What are 2 circles? Copper coins. That's right, copper coins are round. Just as I was about to go buy 2 strings and try, Lin Eru, a woman in a long dress, led 2 children over first. "Bring me 2 sausages." After speaking, seeing the woman holding a square in her hand, she gestured towards the car and clicked on it a few times. The black box then heard a voice. "Pay 4 yuan, welcome to come again." The siblings looked surprised and said, "Sister, do people here don't have to pay for things? But where are we going to get that square block?" Lin Xiaoman shook his head, she also wants to know. A woman wearing a tight top and short skirt walked past, holding a square in her hand against her ear and cursing along the way. "What's going on? My house is renovated, I buy appliances, I will take care of your mother after getting married, and we also have to repay your mother's name's mortgage together. Is it too much for me to ask for a dowry of 80,000 yuan? Hee, you have over 200,000 yuan to buy a new car, but you don't have the money to give a dowry of 80,000 yuan. I'm not as good as your car, am I? Your calculations are all on my face. Alright, goodbye to you. I'll go and move my things away tonight. What's wrong with sleeping with you? I'll treat you like a dog bit me. If all the men in the world were like you, I'd rather live a single life. I'm sorry. Scumbag be good. Lin Xiaoman used to think that the women in Hedong village were recognized as the most tiger among the 10 miles and 8 townships, but he didn't expect that every mountain was even higher. If it were placed in Hedong village, the spine would be punctured by someone. But she heard it half understood and felt that women were cursing a bit too much. Lin Xiaoman raised his hand to cover Lin Erhu's ears. Erhu is still young, but he can't listen to these things. But that square is really magical, it can buy things and curse people. The siblings walked slowly along the way, crossing the crowd. Although someone looked at them, there was no disdain or malice in their eyes, only curiosity about their clothes. Walking through the grass and trees, I saw a small river in front of me from afar. Several low grass sheds were built by the river, and people dressed even worse than their siblings walked back and forth. The siblings were overjoyed. It seemed that this place was not entirely unfamiliar with people and things, at least they could still see people dressed similarly to them. Although the clothes on these people's bodies were worn out, they were all red and full of pride, unlike their siblings who had been starving for a year and had become emaciated. As soon as the siblings approached the crowd, they heard a person holding a trumpet-shaped object shouting, "Everyone, let's take another scene of the disaster victims fighting for food." Did you hear that? It's the disaster victims fighting for food. The victims who have been hungry for several months, not the old man shopping, are all getting angry and ruthless at me. Do you understand? Listen. Understand. Now. A sparse response came from beside. The sister and brother didn't know what had happened before they saw 2 bags of mantu dumped on the grass beside the river. Is this white flour mantu? The younger brother and sister both stared at each other with astonishment. Not to mention that they had spent more than a year with my father's milk, even when my parents were still alive, they could not often eat white noodles at home, let alone such white mantu. I have never seen it before. The man asked them to rob the white flour mantu, but he wanted to rob it more ferociously. You are really a great person. The disaster victims here are also so happy, they eat better than the wealthy people there. The person who poured the mantu quickly left, and then heard their shouting. 3 games, 2 mirrors, 6 times. With the sound of beating the board, people nearby rushed towards the mantu on the ground. The siblings couldn't communicate in time, so they let go of their small hands and charged towards the crowd with all their might. Lin Erhu was small in stature and agile, weaving back and forth through the cracks of the crowd before quickly rushing to the front. Lin Xiaoman didn't give a single penny, relying on her strength to push anyone next to her away with her brute force, and a scream echoed in her ear. Soon, the sister and brother went hand in hand, rushed to the pile of mantu almost at the same time, squatted down and put mantu in their arms. Seeing the people behind him getting closer and closer, the sister and brother kept on throwing at the mantu pile and pressing the mantu under them. Lin Erhu kicked his legs randomly, making the people next to him hesitant to approach, but also arousing others' competitiveness. Someone came over and dragged their sister and brother's legs out. The sister and brother protected the mantu under their bodies. People were dragged away, and mantu could not be lost. But it takes food protection to the extreme. Lin Xiaoman took the opportunity to retaliate a few times. Fortunately, she regained her strength and did not harm anyone, but she could also hear a few curses. With the sound of card coming from the loudspeaker, everyone began to curse, who brought these 2 little brats. Do you want to act like you're trying your best? Oh hey, my legs have been kicked several times. I don't know. I really thought they were hungry for a few days without eating. Alright, their child is good at acting. Isn't it just a few kicks? How much pain can it be? What kind of group performance would they be afraid of pain? Are you standing and talking without causing back pain? Why don't you let them kick a few feet to see if it hurts? The sister and brother lay on the mantel pile and listened to these people saying what they didn't understand, but they refused to get up. A young female voice came from outside the crowd. All right, this scene has passed. Let's all come and collect the money. Everyone just walked over to the woman with short hair, each holding a square in their hand. From time to time, they could hear a voice. 50 yuan received on WeChat. Ha! It's another unfamiliar word. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Originally, this was called a plastic bag. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Originally, this was called a plastic bag. Quickly, the person who had received the money walked away cursing and the woman walked towards the siblings. Although they sat up, each of them had a bulging bag in his arms, and the flattened mantu on the ground was also protected by them, as if they were holding some rare treasure, and they also giggled from time to time. The woman couldn't help but laugh. You acted well. The director said we'll give each of you an extra 50. Bring your phone, and I'll transfer the money to you. Mobile phone. Both siblings heard the word for the first time and their faces were even more bewildered. The woman waited for a long time without seeing them take out their phones. Looking at their ages, one looked like 13 or 14, and the other looked like 8 or 9 years old. She suddenly said, "You don't have a phone, do you? If you still want to be a group performer in the future, it's best to have your parents buy you a phone, which is also convenient for communication." After speaking, he took out a handful of money from his shirt pocket and handed 2 red ones to his siblings, saying, "Take them. Fortunately, I still have money on me, otherwise I wouldn't be able to pay you today. Work hard, and I'll come back to you when I find a suitable character in the future." After speaking, the woman patted the shoulders of the siblings and turned around to leave. The man who went to pour mantu on the ground came over with a big bag and held it out in front of his sister and brother. What? Didn't the disaster victims rely solely on their abilities to grab food? Why do you still need to return it? The sister and brother hugged each other more tightly this time, and looked at him as if he was looking at a bad man. The man tooted. "You don't want it, do you? It's okay. Put it in a bag, and it's convenient to carry it. Clean up all the broken mantu on the ground. Otherwise, it won't be given to you in the future." After finishing speaking, he happily put down 2 bags and ran away. It's rare to find 2 children who work part-time. What if they react and quit? Going far away, one could still hear him muttering, "Now that we can still see children who cherish food so much, what kind of poverty does our family have?" Lin Xiaoman doesn't feel ashamed of being poor, only when he can't eat enough is he ashamed. The bag is transparent, soft, and light, with a handle that makes a loud noise when held in the hand. Although I don't know what material it is made of, mantu is really easy to use, but it doesn't look as strong as cloth bags. Lin Xiaoman put mantu in his arms into a bag. Let's put mantu in it. When Lin Eru's mantu was also loaded, the 2 men picked up the crushed mantu on the ground. Although it was stained with mud, it could be eaten even if the mud was removed. The mantu made of white flour is more fragrant and sweet than what they have eaten before. Why did people here throw it away? There were 300 mantu in total, and even the mantu dregs on the ground were picked up completely. Only then did the sister and brother carry 2 large bags full of mantu back. "Sister, this mantu is really delicious. Go back and dry everything you can't finish. It's also delicious. Well, stew some wild vegetables, it will be enough for us to eat for a month." Lin Xiaoman took 2 big bags of mantu and walked easily. He also told his brother, "Hold on to my sister's sleeve and don't lose it." "Sister, I'm holding on to it." Passing by the place selling grilled sausages, Lin Eru couldn't help but take a sip of water and drank a bowl of porridge at noon, but didn't have enough to eat at all. Lin Xiaoman stood there hesitating, put 2 bags of mantou in one hand, grabbed Lin Eru and walked over. "Shopkeeper, give me 2 skewers of grilled sausages and 2 skewers of fish balls," he said, taking out the 2 red tickets he had just earned from his pocket and handing them over. The man selling grilled sausages looked at Lin Xiaoman in surprise and smiled. "Are you from over there filming? You're quite involved in the film. You don't want to be called the shopkeeper now, you need to be called the boss." Lin Xiaoman nodded and "Thank you, boss." The man handed over the skewered sausages and fish balls, took the money from Lin Xiaoman's hand, and quickly found the change. Lin Xiaoman took over and counted, with 1 green one being the largest, 2 brown ones slightly smaller, and 2 round silver ones, about the size of a copper coin. After collecting the money, Lin Xiaoman and Lin Eru were nibbling on it next to them. The grilled sausage skin is slightly crispy, and the meat and oil inside are fragrant. The fish balls are fresh and chewy, and taking a bite is really refreshing. After finishing the meal, Lin Xiaoman stood for a while and couldn't bear to buy 2 more skewers. He picked up Lin Eru and walked back. They will send mantou home first, and then come to see if they can buy some for home use. After arriving at the big tree, the door was still there, looking like the tree had been divided into 2 sections by someone in the middle. The siblings quickly crawled through the door when no one noticed them. Put the mantou in a cloth bag and lock it in the box. Then fold the bag with the mantou and put it in your arms. Then they got into the cabinet door again. This time they changed direction and soon passed through a large iron gate. The outside was a flat road surface, which looked like stone but not like stone. Colorful, various sizes of square houses with wheels were running up and down, and people could be seen sitting inside. A small square house can accommodate a few people, while a large one can accommodate dozens of people. Some people were also riding on 2 fast spinning wheels, causing the siblings to be stunned and occasionally making small screams of surprise. However, pedestrians are all walking on the steps on both sides. The siblings followed the crowd and walked forward. When they reached the intersection, the people around them would stop and wait until the red pillar on the opposite side turned green, and all the houses on the road stopped. Only then did everyone quickly move towards the opposite side. After passing that section of the road, Lin Xiaoman educated Lin Eru, "Eru, you must remember that people here have to look at that pillar when they walk. Only when the pillar is green can they walk." "Sister, I know." Taking a few dozen steps forward, I saw 2 large stores, one labeled IKEA Supermarket and the other labeled Huego Supermarket. The goods in front of the door were piled up like a small hill, surrounded by shoppers. There are 2 people on each side standing on the table, shouting at each other with their horns raised. Don't miss out on firewood, rice, oil, salt, soy sauce, vinegar, and tea when passing by. IKEA Supermarket has everything you need. Take a walk, take a look, don't miss out on good products. Look in the eyes, think in the heart, Huego Supermarket is the most cost-effective. In the confrontation between the 2, price announcements came from the black boxes on both sides. IKEA Supermarket has a special today, with 1 yuan per bag of refined salt, 1 yuan per piece of soap, 3.98 yuan per kilogram of sugar, 8.9 yuan per kilogram of pork, 2.8 yuan per kilogram of loose rice, 5.8 yuan per kilogram of chicken legs, 22.9 yuan per kilogram of chicken wings, etc. Huego Supermarket Anniversary Celebration, 16.8 liters of toilet paper, 3.98 pounds of eggs, 4.28 pounds of brown sugar. After comparison, Lin Xiaoman believes that products from IKEA supermarkets are better because their salt costs 1 yuan per bag, which is even cheaper than grilled sausages. You should know that in the past, when I went to the town with my parents to buy salt, a small jar of salt as big as a palm would cost tens of yuan. I just don't know how many bags can there be here. Lin Xiaoman squeezed into the crowd and handed over a brown money, "Boss, buy salt." That was a middle-aged woman. When Lin Xiaoman called her boss, she couldn't help but laugh and say, I'm just a worker, not a boss. Just call me Auntie. Auntie, I'll buy salt, Lin Xiaoman said with ease. The woman took the money and asked, buy salt for 20 yuan. Lin Xiaoman nodded vigorously and said, yes, we all buy salt. 2 cents a plastic bag. Have you brought your own plastic bag? I brought it with me. Lin Xiaoman quickly took out a bag from his arms and unfolded it, thinking to himself, so this is called a plastic bag. End of this chapter. Did the donkey kick the head in chapter 5? You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Did the donkey kick the head in chapter 5? The woman quickly put 20 bags of salt into a plastic bag and handed it to Lin Xiaoman. She also asked, are you filming in the park? Why are you still wearing costumes and coming out? I didn't have time to exchange it. Lin Xiaoman responded vaguely. I thought to myself. It seems that before that, those people were singing a play of refugees fleeing from famine. This troupe was really rich. They threw more than 300 mantu in one play. Looking back, can we earn some more money to buy clothes here and change them? Otherwise, if we encounter people, we will ask, which is inconvenient. Squeeze out the crowd and hide in the corner with Lin Eru to look at the salt in the bag. It's fine salt, whiter than the best salt they've ever eaten before. Weighing by hand, it's not as much as 1 pound on their side, but they just earned enough money to buy such 200 bags of salt. The things here are really cheap. Lin Eru summarized, sister, the 1 yuan here should be about the same as our 1 yuan. But the things here are cheap, and the money is easy to earn. We will come and earn money to buy things and we have nothing to do in the future. Lin Xiaoman also agreed, when I first came over, I saw many people selling mountain goods in baskets. Later, we also went up the mountain to look for anything we could sell. Unfortunately, we don't allow the sale of illegal salt on our side, and if we catch it, we will go to jail. We can buy other things and sell them to others for money. Lin Eru chuckled and said, a few days ago, when I went up the mountain to chop firewood, I saw a stick hammer on the mountain. Once my father bought a stick hammer stew soup for my mother, which cost several taels of silver. I remember all the places and will dig a few to sell later. Okay, just go buy a few more pounds of sugar and rice and go back. I'm not afraid of going hungry this winter. I want to eat meat. Buy it for you. So the siblings headed straight to the cheapest IKEA supermarket for salt. Salt is sold so cheap, nothing else is definitely expensive. The supermarket is crowded with people, and every stall is packed with people in front. Sisters and brothers squeeze into a meat stall. Next to them were elderly aunts, aunties, and grandfathers, who shouted, I want 2 pounds of pork ribs. The person shouted, weigh me 3 pounds of 5 flowers. I want that piece of cucumber meat and that piece of tenderloin. The siblings chattered as if buying meat for free. As they squeezed into the crowd, they saw a row of cabinets with openings facing upwards, filled with sliced meat, and the cool air poured down their faces. Sister, there's a lot of meat, Lin Eru shook Lin Xiaoman's hand. Buy it, just buy one. From Lin Xiaoman's perspective, the meat sold here is thinner than the meat sold in the county, which makes her dissatisfied. Eating fatty meat is more fragrant, especially when it comes to large fat meat, which can be used to boil meat and oil. Adding a spoonful of meat and oil to cooking noodles is even more fragrant. The leftover oil residue from cooking is delicious for stewing vegetables and filling. Sprinkle a little salt on the noodles and eat them directly, which can make people feel fragrant. But the fat in the county town is expensive and in high demand, and every time her father has to wake up early and go out to buy it. And the bones inside, although they are more expensive than the meat sold in the county, why are they even more expensive than meat? It's strange that people here are willing to spend expensive money to buy bones with little meat instead of eating good meat. Did the donkey kick the head? Lin Xiaoman looked critically around and suddenly his eyes lit up. He pointed to the pile of fat in the farthest corner and asked, Auntie, how do you sell that? Lin Xiaoman thought that fatty pork belly was the most expensive. Fat meat like this without any lean meat was even more expensive than pork belly. Unexpectedly, the meat seller glanced at the pile of fat meat and said, "These are all leftovers from skimming the lean meat. How much does it cost for 591 pounds? Another unfamiliar word. Lin Xiaoman didn't know how much 5 and 9 yuan was, so he handed over the last 20 yuan and cautiously asked, "How much can I buy for 20 yuan? The woman who sold meat took the money, took out a few pieces of fat from the cabinet, and weighed them on an electronic scale. 95 yuan. The bag is 2 cents, a total of 19.7 yuan. I'll give you 3 cents. I'll keep the money and receipt." Lin Xiaoman knows now. 5 yuan and 9 yuan is 5 yuan and 9 yuan. Why do the people here still have a way to say it later? But why is fat sold so cheap? Don't people here like to eat fatty meat? Taking the meat and small notes handed over by the woman, as well as 3 smaller silver coins, the siblings couldn't even close their mouths with laughter. Lin Eru took out the green one from Lin Xiaoman's hand and handed it to him. "Auntie, buy some fat," he said. The woman looked at Lin Eru in surprise and said, 50 yuan of fat. Can your family finish eating it? Will you be scolded by your parents when you buy it back? Lin Xiaoman explained with a smile, "It was our elders who asked us to buy it back for refining. Auntie, you can sell it to us." Lin Xiaoman guessed that his parents were talking about the elders in the family, but he didn't know if it was his parents. Or is it grandpa's milk? The woman didn't ask any more questions and quickly weighed the meat for Lin Xiaoman. The siblings spent an extra 30 cents to buy a large plastic bag filled with fat. This plastic bag is thicker than the mantu, and looks solid. Go home and wipe it with grass ash, and then wash it with water. It can be used again after shopping, but it's not so painful. I went to the grain sales area again and bought a bag of white sugar and 90 yuan worth of rice. They also bought a bag of round things called potatoes for the few silver coins they found. I haven't tried it before. Can you go back and taste it? Coming out of IKEA supermarket, there is a row of beautiful small cars outside, with children sitting on them swaying and swaying. A beautiful nursery rhyme came. Dad's dad is called Grandpa, Dad's mom is called Grandma. The siblings stood for a while before finally understanding. Dad is Dad, Mom is Mom. Returning home, closing the door, I took out all the things I bought today and looked at them again before hiding them all. Lin Xiaoman asked Lin Eru to brush the pot, set the stove on fire, and then went to the well to fetch some water and boil it. She then cut the purchased fat into slices. More than 20 pounds of fat, even if there is a shortage of 2 pounds, it will be enough to cook into lard for the siblings to eat until next year. When cooking lard, Lin Xiaoman and Lin Eru went to wash a piece of wood and put it on the floor of the house. They left some mantu to eat these days. The rest was cut into thick pieces and put on the wood to dry. Fortunately, there are not many households left in the west of the village, and the few households that have not moved are also living far away. When the light wind blows, the fragrance of cooking lard is dissipated. After boiling the lard, I added some salt and put it into the oil jar. Surprisingly, a large jar was not filled, and another large bowl was filled. Lin Eru cut a few potatoes from the bottom of the oil in the pot and stewed them. During the meal, Lin Eru almost felt dizzy and said, "Sister, this is too fragrant. Can we eat it so well every day from now on? It's just that the skin on top is not very delicious. I'll have to peel the skin when stewing again next time." "Well, I'm sure I can." Lin Xiaoman also smiled and his eyes curved. The good days of their siblings were still ahead. After a round meal, the siblings lay in bed and didn't want to move anymore. Lin Eru muttered, "This thing called potatoes is really delicious. Let's also plant some in the field next year." "Okay, I don't know how to plant it." I'll ask someone over there and see if there are any other things we don't have here that we can also plant. The next morning, Lin Xiaoman took some pieces of mantu, fried them with lard, added water to the bottom of the oil and cooked a salty congee. When he came out of the pot, he sprinkled a handful of scallions and a handful of oil dregs, and one person drank half a pot of mantu. After enough food and drink, I took a few mantu with me. One person carried a big basket with several cloth bags in it and went out of the door. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. This Little Sweet Mouth. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. This little sweet mouth. Yesterday, I saw many carts or baskets selling mushrooms outside the supermarket, costing around 10 to 20 yuan per kilogram. Some siblings may not quite recognize each other, but most of them are what they used to eat. At this time, the mushrooms on the mountain are growing the best. In less than half a day, they can pick up 100 pounds and deliver them to sell over there. First, buy 2 sets of clothes, and then buy more white rice and noodles. This winter will not be a worry. The siblings were picking mushrooms while walking towards the area where Lin Eru saw the hammer. Sister, it's over there. I heard my dad say that when digging with a hammer, we can't cut off the whiskers. We'll be more careful later. I know, I brought a shovel. I'll dig up all the soil around me and work on it bit by bit. The stick and hammer that Lin Eru mentioned grew on a shady hillside, surrounded by tall trees and weeds, which were hard to spot without careful inspection. Just waiting for the siblings to arrive, what they saw was a freshly turned piece of soil, and from the traces, it can be seen that it was not dug for a long time. Lin Eru felt regretful and said, "If I had known someone had taken the lead, I should have come over earlier to dig." Lin Xiaoman was also somewhat disappointed, but still comforted. If someone dug it up, it shouldn't belong to our family. Picking these mushrooms today can also earn a lot of money. Work harder before it gets cold, and you can always save enough food to eat until next year. Lin Eru still sighed, and Lin Xiaoman had no choice but to say, "You dug long ago, and you'll have to be exchanged by Yi Nai for money. It's better to give someone else a discount." That's true. Sigh. Although Lin Eru sighed again, it was obvious that he was not so depressed. I carefully searched around and finally stumbled upon a relatively small hammer in the grass under a tree. The siblings carefully dug it out and lifted a piece of moss on the ground, wrapped it in several layers of leaves, and then tied it several times with grass ropes before stuffing it under the big basket. I walked around the mountain again. Besides 2 large baskets of mushrooms, I also picked a lot of wild fruits. When I went home, I cut the skin of the fruits a few times, strung them into strings and hung them under the eaves to become dried fruits. In winter, I can soak them in water or steam them with sugar. When my mother was around, I used to cook delicious food in various ways every day. The siblings had eaten a lot of good things, so they naturally ate more than the villagers. After returning home, I drank a spoonful of water and sorted out today's harvest. Wild fruits are placed in baskets and sent to the stove. Mushrooms are divided into 2 large, 2 small, and 4 baskets according to different types, and anything with insects or leaks is picked out. Lin Xiaoman has great strength, carrying 2 large baskets filled with hazel mushrooms. Lin Eru has little strength and carries 2 small baskets, one containing pine tree mushrooms, and the other containing half a basket of monkey head mushrooms and 3 pieces of lingji. Perhaps it was late, there were even more people on the street than yesterday. The siblings were stopped by someone before they even walked to the supermarket where they were shopping yesterday. A round woman wearing an elegant long dress asked, "Child, are you selling mushrooms?" Lin Xiaoman and Lin Eru nodded busily, and Lin Xiaoman said, "It's for sale." "Auntie, do you want to buy mushrooms?" The woman who called out, "Auntie," smiled and said, "Oh my, this sweet little mouth. Even someone in my 60s can be your grandmother, but you don't want to call me Auntie. My surname is Lu, so please call me Grandma Lu." Lin Xiaoman looked at Grandma Lu's fair face in surprise. with almost no creases visible on it. Think about it again, Mrs. Lin is just over 50, with grooves and grooves on her face. When compared together, she believes that Grandma Lu is 20 years older than this one. Grandma Lu, you're really young. What do you usually paint on? Grandma Lu was even happier when she was teased by Lin Xiaoman. I didn't apply anything. When I was young, I didn't like to put on makeup. I usually only apply some nourishing cream, which costs around 10 or 20 yuan. The main thing is to have a good mentality and pay attention to sun protection. When a woman gets too much sun exposure, her skin foundation will deteriorate and she will age quickly. Lin Xiaoman nodded hastily. All the women in the countryside had to follow them to do farm work. When the sun shone, didn't they look older than the women in the city? In the future, when she goes down to work, she needs to cover it tightly. As she spoke, Grandma Lu greeted the siblings and said, "It's quite heavy. Don't stand here and chatter. Let's go to the side and take a look at the mushrooms." Lin Xiaoman and Lin Eru walked over with baskets on their shoulders and placed them on the ground. Grandma Lu began flipping through several baskets. "Your mushrooms are really good. There aren't many bugs yet. How much does it cost per kilogram? If it's cheap, I'll buy more." Lin Xiaoman remembers seeing yesterday that hazel mushrooms are sold for 16.1 pounds, while pine mushrooms are sold for 251 pounds, which is not as good as what they brought. Monkey head mushrooms have never been sold by anyone, but they are quite expensive on their side, and they should not be cheap either. But their siblings didn't weigh it. Lin Xiaoman pointed to several baskets and said, "Grandma Lu, we didn't weigh them, so let's sell them in baskets." A large basket of hazel mushrooms weighs about 30 pounds. I sell Grandma Lu 451 baskets, 2 baskets of 900, and about 5 pounds of pine mushrooms. Grandma Lu can give me 100. Monkey heads and lingji are also collected from the mountains, and I don't know how to sell them. Grandma Lu can watch and give them to me. Grandma Lu twitched at the corner of her mouth, intending to make her all round. Take a look at the 2 big baskets of hazel mushrooms. The baskets are very big, and there are only a lot more mushrooms inside than the little girl said. This price is indeed cheap, but she just wants to buy some and wait until tomorrow weekend when her son and his family come back to stew chicken. At most, she can only buy a dozen pounds of dried goods. How can she buy so much? But these 2 children looked as if they were pitiful. Under their eager gaze, they said they wouldn't buy it, and they felt guilty in their hearts. As soon as she gritted her teeth, Grandma Lu said, "Okay, you guys come home with me. My house is in the neighborhood ahead. Hey, let me take this basket. It seems like you're not old enough, why can't you hold such a heavy basket? Why do your parents rest assured that you're coming out?" As she spoke, Grandma Lu picked up a large basket of hazel mushrooms, so heavy that she almost dodged her waist. Looking at Lin Xiaoman, who was not yet at the height of her shoulders and was thin and small, I didn't know if he was 14 years old. He effortlessly carried 2 baskets and walked for an unknown distance, which made him even more distressed about these 2 children. Lin Xiaoman and Lin Eru didn't know that Grandma Lu had already treated them as little pitties in her heart, and happily followed behind Grandma Lu towards the community she pointed to. On the way, Grandma Lu took out the square that everyone here had, pressed it a few times and placed it in her ear. Soon, she heard a sound coming from there. Grandma Lu said, "Lao Zhang, do you buy mushrooms at your house? I met 2 children selling mushrooms here. The mushrooms look really good, but there are too many. My family can't finish them all. If you buy them, let's divide them." "Okay, I'll see you downstairs in the community later." There are quite a few. You see who else wants to buy them, take care of a few more people and bring their own bags. I don't think these 2 children have plastic bags either. "Oh, Lao Su, my side. Yes, I remember you have a scale at home, right? Let me borrow it." Before going far, Grandma Lu had already contacted several people, put away the blocks, and smiled with a smile on her face. "All right, Grandma has taken care of many people. You mushrooms won't worry about selling them later," she said. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Not afraid of rain, thunder, and killing them. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. Not afraid of rain, thunder, and killing them. The siblings thanked Grandma Lu and saw her struggling to carry the basket as she walked. Lin Xiaoman snatched the basket and said, "Grandma Lu, I have a lot of strength, so let me carry it." Grandma Lu wanted to say that she could still persevere, but it was evident that Lin Xiaoman was carrying 2 large baskets of mushrooms and walking as fast as if he had nothing to do, so he didn't show off. On the way, chatting with Grandma Lu asked, "Why are you dressed like this? Are you from any ethnic minority?" Lin Xiaoman remembered what the owner of the grilled sausages said yesterday. "We were in the theatrical troupe over there. We came in a hurry and didn't have time to change clothes. Drama team. Hee, you're such a funny kid. Are you saying that the film and television base over there is filming?" Grandma Lu was quite amused. Lin Xiaoman thought that the boss seemed to be talking about filming, so he nodded and said, "Yes, filming." Hee, I was wrong. Where are you 2 adults? How can you rest assured that you 2 will come to the city? Speaking of his family, Lin Xiaoman sighed and said, "Last year, the Earth Dragon turned around and our parents were gone. We didn't want to starve to death, so we came out to find a way out." Grandma Lu's eyes turned red as she listened. "Are there no other relatives?" Lin Eru's mouth flattened as he said, "This year's drought, my master's milk is afraid that we will eat too much, so after we finish harvesting, we will split up. Your mistress is really not human. Did you wait to finish all the household chores before separating you?" Lin Xiaoman and Lin Eru both nodded in agreement. Lin Eru wiped his eyes and said, "My mistress even took over my mother's dowry. She gave us 60 pounds of grain and rushed back to the half-collapsed old house." Grandma Lu was furious when she heard this and said, "I'm not afraid of rain or thunder that could kill them." This time, the eyes of the 2 children were filled with love, wanting to help them sell the mushrooms as much as possible. As they spoke, the 3 of them arrived at the residential area where Grandma Lu lived. Grandma Lu took out a piece and shook it, and the small door next to her opened. Following Grandma Lu into the community, before walking too far, Grandma Lu waved in front and said, "Lao Zhang, Lao Su, here you are." Lin Xiaoman and Lin Eru saw more than 10 women in front of them, who were about the same age as Grandma Lu, walking towards them and quickly surrounded the 3 of them. These women looked even richer than the wealthy ladies they had seen in the city, some of whom were thinner and had more mental energy than the 30-something women they had seen there. Many of them even wore rouge and powder on their faces, but they looked much more beautiful than the dead white and blood-red ladies they had seen in the city. Thinking about the people I have seen here these past few days, it seems that most of them have no signs of sadness on their faces. Lin Xiaoman and Lin Eru feel envious. If their lives there could also be so prosperous, everyone's faces would probably be smiling. One of the chubby-looking women was holding something she didn't know what was in her hand. "Lao Lu, my family's scale was taken away by my kid. I borrowed an electronic scale from the fruit store over there, so there's no need to pay for it. It's convenient," she said. "Oh my, it has to be Lao Su. He's so reliable in handling things." Lin Xiaoman and Lin Eru stared at the electronic scale in Grandma Su's hand, but couldn't see where it looked like a scale. Next, there is no need for Lin Xiaoman and Lin Eru to greet each other. Grandma Lu asked everyone to put mushrooms in their pockets and weigh them at her place. Bangzi mushrooms weigh 16 yuan per kilogram, and pine tree mushrooms weigh 25 yuan per kilogram. They were quickly packed out and queued up for Grandma Lu to weigh them. Grandma Lu asked Lin Xiaoman, "Girl, do you have a payment code?" Lin Xiaoman shook his head in confusion, while Grandma Lu sighed. These 2 children looked very poor at home, and it's not surprising that they don't have a phone. She should just be a good person and do it to the end. Run to the nearby security room to borrow a pen and paper. For each serving of mushrooms sold, write down the type, weight, and price on the paper. Then have someone scan her payment code. After the mushrooms are sold, she will take her siblings to the bank to withdraw money. Lingji and Monkey Head are also being asked for prices, but the siblings don't know the price either. Just ask the grandmothers to give some as they please. But these grandmothers don't want to take advantage of their siblings either. Grandma Su pointed at the square and handed it to her siblings. It's written on it that you picked such a large wild Lingji mushroom, ranging from 500 to 2,000 per plant. There are a total of 3 plants here, 1 plant is 500, 1 plant is 1,000, and 1 plant is 2,000. Can I give you 3,005 elements? Old Su, why are you buying so many Lingji mushrooms all at once? This is not my old Zheng. A while ago, he said he wanted to make health wine. He went to the pharmacy and bought 2 wild Lingji mushrooms, but when he found out that they were all raised at home, he got angry and said he wanted to make snake wine instead of Lingji wine. Oh, the thought of that made my scalp tingle. Coincidentally, I bought wild Lingji mushrooms for him today, so he wouldn't have to bring a snake back one day. How about talking about old children? Old children, your old Zheng is also too funny. The people next to him laughed heartily as they listened. Lin Xiaoman and Lin Eru opened their mouths wide and had not yet recovered from the price offered by Grandma Su. According to the comparison they made yesterday between copper money and paper money, 1 penny is equivalent to 1 yuan, isn't 35 cents equivalent to 3,500 cents? That's 3 or 2 halves of silver. They have only been up the mountain for half a day and have earned 3 or 2.5. Picking mountain goods is too profitable. Lin Eru nodded hurriedly and said, okay, we can pick it later and bring it back to Grandma. A sentence made several grandmothers laugh again. You really know how to do business. Your grandmother's family can't make so much wine. After hearing the reminder of receiving 3,500 yuan from Grandma Lu, Lin Xiaoman stuffed the stick wrapped in leaves into Grandma Su's cloth pocket and said, Grandma Su, this is the stick we dug on the mountain. Take it home and brew wine together. Grandma Su didn't know what a hammer was and didn't take it seriously. She just smiled and said thank you. Monkey heads were also bought by Grandma Zhao, totaling 2 pounds. Grandma Zhao gave them 200 yuan. After all the mushrooms were sold out, holding the accounting paper, I calculated and sold them for a total of 5,200 yuan and 0.5 yuan. This time, the siblings were so beautiful that they only had silly smiles left. Follow Grandma Lu to the bank ATM to withdraw money. Watching Grandma Lu stuff a piece of money into a strange object clamped in the wall, and then click on it, a stack of money is spit out from the strange object, making both siblings look straight. The banks here are also so magical. Grandma Lu gave the money for selling mushrooms to Lin Xiaoman, and Lin Xiaoman refunded Grandma Lu's 100 yuan for buying mushrooms. Thank you Grandma Lu today. These mushrooms are considered as filial piety from younger generations, he said. Grandma Lu refused to accept it. Lin Xiaoman and Lin Eru threw the money and ran away. Grandma Lu shouted twice from behind and could only shake her head helplessly. What sensible children! How could Grandpa and Grandma be so cruel? With over 5,000 yuan, Lin Xiaoman and Lin Eru always felt unsafe and decided to send the money home first, and come back tomorrow to make purchases. The sky was getting slightly dark, and both sides of the road were actually lit up. Looking up, I saw the ordinary pillars during the day, and at this moment, lights were shining on them. The shops and homes were also brightly lit, and the colorful lights illuminated the streets more brilliantly than in the daytime. The eyes of the siblings were not enough. On the road we walked during the day, night markets were set up on both sides, selling various types of food and clothing. The abundance of things is dazzling. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. The tribe chief's hair is getting fewer and fewer. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Chapter 8. The tribe chief's hair is getting fewer and fewer, the shopping mall counter is outdated and clearing inventory. There are 101 sets of branded sportswear, which are truly worth it. 100, you can't afford to lose out, you can't afford to fall for it. Don't miss it if you pass by. The siblings stopped in their tracks and looked in the direction of the sound. It was a clothing stall, with dozens of sets of clothes hanging on three sides of the internet. A man shouted loudly with a loudspeaker in his hand. After some bargaining, one person spent 80 yuan to buy a set. Under the strong recommendation of the vendor, each person spent 30 and bought another one to wear inside. At the nearby shoe stall, each person spent 100 yuan to buy a pair of sports shoes. The shoe vendor saw that the siblings didn't have socks and gave them each a pair of socks. Wearing sports shoes, my feet are soft and the ground is no longer so rough. Walking feels like stepping on clouds. Passing through the night market, the siblings had a lot of things in their baskets, including roasted duck for 15 yuan, roasted chicken for 20 yuan, honey for 50 yuan, and 10 pounds of apples for 3 yuan per pound. The apple is big and red, looking like the purple nai they have eaten before, but the fruit is larger and the flesh is more fragrant, crispy, and sweet, leaving a lingering fragrance on the cheeks after taking a bite. Seeing someone selling folding bathtubs, the two of them stood beside and watched for a while. After learning how to use them, they also bought two so that they could boil water and take a shower when they got home. Someone is peeling chestnut balls on the roadside, and there is also a stall next to him. A shouting sound comes from the loudspeaker above the stall. Authentic sugar fried chestnuts, 21 pounds. Lin Xiaoman asked, "Boss, what are you doing peeling prick balls for? This thing hurts so much." The boss smiled and said, "What else can we do? Peel and sell. These are all things I collected at the foot of the mountain today, they are fresh. If you buy them raw, I also have a shelling machine here, and you can help peel them for free." Lin Xiaoman and Lin Xiaoman's eyes lit up as they listened. Can this also be eaten? The boss was upset and looked at them like fools. You don't know chestnuts. You haven't eaten roasted chestnuts in sugar-coated heated sand with sugar. I think you are here to make trouble, right? Lin Xiaoman quickly waved his hand and said, No, there are so many mountains behind our house that we don't even know if we can eat them. Boss, can we only stir-fry them with sugar when we go back? When the boss saw that she didn't like to tell lies, his face softened slightly, pointing to the roasted chestnuts in sugar-coated heated sand nearby. I will tell you when you buy a gene of roasted chestnuts in sugar-coated heated sand. Lin Xiaoman quickly took out 20 yuan and sincerely handed it over. The boss felt a bit embarrassed when he saw her happy and waved his hand, saying, I just said it, as if forcing you to buy it. Put the money away, and I'll tell you how to eat it. When no one bought chestnuts next, the boss explained to the siblings how to eat chestnuts, stir-frying, boiling, peeling and stewing chicken. The siblings were all drooling. After the boss finished talking, Lin Xiaoman asked the boss to weigh 2 gene of roasted chestnuts in sugar-coated heated sand with sugar. The boss didn't refuse any further this time and weighed 2 pounds and handed them over in a paper bag. The sister and brother said thanks and walked back. They squeezed a roasted chestnuts in sugar-coated heated sand and took a bite. It was really sweet, soft and glutinous. It was delicious. When passing by the sausages stall, Lin Xiaoman gave Lin Xiaoman 50 yuan and asked him to buy both sausages and fish balls. Perhaps it was the first delicacy they had here, and the taste lingered in their minds. When they got home, Lin Xiaoman cooked a pot of porridge. The sister and brother sat at the table, one mouthful of congee and one mouthful of meat, and then one roasted chestnuts in sugar-coated heated sand. Sister, I didn't expect this chestnut to be so delicious. With so many chestnuts in the back mountain, we won't be afraid to go hungry when we pick them back. Lin Xiaoman seemed to have not heard anything, and her face was written with something on her mind. "Sister, this roasted chicken is really delicious. I've never eaten it before, and the roast duck is also delicious. Let's go buy it tomorrow." Seeing that Lin Xiaoman still didn't respond, he reached out and pushed her, and Lin Xiaoman finally regained his senses. "Who, do you think we can talk to Grandpa about what we can eat with the prickly ball? When we pick it back, everyone will share it, so we won't be afraid of hunger." After hearing this, Lin also agreed. "I see that Uncle Chang's hair on his head has been decreasing since he became the clan leader. Dad said it's all because he's worried. We told him about the pricking ball, and he doesn't have to worry anymore. He can also lose a little less hair." After the siblings reached a consensus, each person carried a handful of sugar-fried chestnuts in their pocket and went straight to the clan chief's house. At this moment it was already late and the surroundings were pitch black. The siblings walked deep and light. When they arrived at the chieftain's house, the lights had already been turned off. Lin shouted outside the courtyard, "Second Grandpa, Uncle Chang, have you all slept?" The room responded, and soon the doors of the two main rooms were almost pushed open at the same time. Lin Yuang and Lin Daqiang came out wearing clothes. "It's Xiaoman and Eru. They came so late, and it's your grandpa's wife who has become a demon again. Second Grandpa took you out of anger." Lin chuckled and said, "Thank you, Grandpa. It's not my fault this time." "What's that? Let's go, come in and say." Lin Xiaoman and Lin followed the master into the house, and the second grandmother also lit the oil lamp. The villagers are reluctant to light up the lights and boil oil. They usually go to bed at night, and Lin and his family only stay up all night when Big Brother comes back from school. But Lin Xiaoman and Lin heard from Lin Guden that their big brother didn't light the lamp entirely to read the Book of Sages. Once, Guden saw with his own eyes the book hidden under his pillow, depicting the man and woman without clothes. Lin Xiaoman wants to wait for her and to save enough money and buy a house and land there, so that they can also light up such lights at night. The siblings took out chestnuts from their pockets and placed them on the table. "Second Grandpa, Uncle Chang, this is the prickly ball that I and who found while picking mushrooms on the mountain today. It tastes really good after frying it with sugar. Can you try it and eat it as food?" Lin Daqiang frowned and said, "Nonsense, why do you dare to eat anything? Aren't you afraid of getting poisoned? If you don't have enough food, come over and say that I can still make you hungry." "Oh, Dad, what did I say wrong? Why did you hit me?" Lin Yuang withdrew the slap he had just slapped on the back of Lin Daqiang's head and said, "How many households in the village can have enough to eat this year? The two children are also kind-hearted, can't they both wait to starve like you?" Lin Daqiang dared not disobey his father and could only remain silent in grievances. Lin Xiaoman explained, "Uncle Chang, this is really non-toxic. My mother made it for us when we were young, and I ate it since I was young." After speaking, crush one and hand it to Lin Yuang. Lin Yuang took it over and ate it without hesitation. His eyes lit up immediately. "I didn't expect the prickly balls all over the mountain to be so delicious. This time we don't have to go hungry anymore." The more he spoke, the more excited his tone became. Finally, he slapped his son on the back of the head and said, "Dachan, you should call the villagers over early tomorrow morning and go up the mountain together to pick thorns." Lin Daqiang heard from Lin Xiaoman that his mother had done it before, and he no longer doubted it. The whole village knows that Xiaomaniang's family runs a restaurant and has excellent cooking skills. She can definitely cook more delicious food than these rural people. "Goodbye, his father has eaten it all, and I also took one myself. I pinched it open and ate it like Lin Xiaoman did. This time he's not calm anymore. If he could eat this, he wouldn't be afraid of going hungry this winter." End of this chapter. Chapter 9. The Death of the Second Wife. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The source has no content or has errors. Chapter 10. Illness. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Illness. Let you speak. Let you speak. Mrs. Lin was so angry that she punched Mr. Lin on the back a few times. I didn't mean to kill my second wife. When the house beam fell, I was also scared and brought her over. It seems like you have a long mouth, right? Mr. Lin also knew he had made a slip of his tongue and was beaten so hard that he couldn't even speak back, even though he was in pain. Suddenly, there was a clang in the yard, as if someone had knocked something down. Mrs. Lin was shocked and shouted sternly, "Who is outside?" Mr. Lin quickly got out of bed and chased after him without worrying about putting on his shoes. With a squeak sound, when Mr. Lin rushed out, he happened to see his eldest daughter in-law push the door out of her living room. Seeing Mr. Lin push the door, he was startled and said, "Dad. You. How did you come out?" Mr. Lin asked, "Who was in the yard just now?" Auntie shook her head and said, "No one." Her tone sounded guilty no matter how she sounded. Mr. Lin stared at her face for a while, but the lights were dark and he couldn't see anything. He searched around the yard again and didn't find anyone suspicious, so he threw the door back into the house. Auntie scolded in a low voice, "You're sick." After cursing, Auntie turned to Uncle Lin behind her and said, go back quickly, let my family know that prickly balls can be used as food. They don't have to worry about not having enough food." Uncle Lin reluctantly said, "When has it been? If you still let me drive in the dark, wouldn't you be afraid that I'll empty the ditch with 1 foot? This matter can't be delayed. We have to go up the mountain tomorrow. It will take several days until the village finishes picking all the thorny balls from the back mountain. When the news reaches my parents' house, how much can my family pick? All right, when we come back from the butcher's house, we cut 2 pounds of meat on the way, and I'll go buy a piece of tofu. In the evening, I'll give your grandfather some roasted meat to eat." After speaking, he stuffed a small string of money into Uncle Lin's hand. Uncle Lin saw that he wanted to buy meat to eat, and his lazy illness disappeared. Auntie took the opportunity to push him out of the courtyard door and stuffed him with a torch and a torch. There are many people in the village with mixed eyes, so it's hard to guarantee that one night they won't sleep and wander outside. "We'll light it when we leave the village," she said. "Hey, don't worry, my foot is fast, I will definitely come back before going up the mountain." Uncle Lin ran along and quickly disappeared into the darkness. Auntie closed the courtyard door and was about to return when a short black figure rushed into her room, startling her. Thinking that it was her son Gooden who had just woken up to go to the restroom, she patted his chest and cursed, "Bunny, you scared me to death." His gaze fell on the main room and he pursed his lips, making the old man so nervous that he didn't know what he had just overheard outside his mistress's window. Lin Xiaoman and Lin Eru were currently in a self-selected supermarket. They walked around the supermarket and found products that could be easily reached, but no one selling them was seen. It wasn't until they saw someone queuing up at the exit to pay the bill that the siblings realized that they were all putting the selected items in the car and then queuing up there to pay. So, the siblings began to choose products without any hesitation. When passing by the promotion area, an aunt handed Lin Xiaoman a large bag of toilet paper and said, "Little sister, this paper is soft and doesn't hurt when wiping your butt. It can also be used during the period." Lin Xiaoman didn't know what it meant to have a period break, and his face was bewildered. His aunt pulled her aside and whispered to her for a while, causing Lin Xiaoman's ears to turn red. Originally, the menstrual period mentioned by the aunt was a woman's guishui. Although she had not yet come, her mother had taught her during her time. Women in the village sewed long bags with cloth, which were filled with plant ash. Every time they used them, they poured out the plant ash, washed the cloth bags with water, and dried them in the room for future use. The women here are so happy that they can buy such things. Thinking that there hasn't even been any toilet paper at home these days, and we always use big leaves to deal with it. Lin Xiaoman didn't hesitate to put 4 large bags of toilet paper in the car and bought several large bags of daily and night-use sanitary pads to prepare on the recommendation of his aunt. Lin Xiaoman remembered yesterday that Grandma Lu said that she looked young because she had always applied nourishing cream, and asked Auntie where there was a nourishing cream for sale. Auntie enthusiastically led her to the counter selling nourishing cream and asked the salesperson at the counter to help select 2 products suitable for young girls and 2 for children. Also, apply it to the back of Lin Xiaoman's hand for trial. You don't need to get close enough to smell the fragrant scent. Judging from the price, they are all priced at around 10 yuan per small box. You can immediately feel your hands moisturized when you apply them to your hands. Here are a few recommended styles, 1 box for each. The salesperson saw Lin Xiaoman happily buying it, and then saw her rough little hands, which showed that she was used to farming. He recommended it to her. Little girl, this Vaseline cream is most suitable for people who work regularly. You don't have to be afraid of getting your hands cracked when wiping it on your hands during winter work. Lin Xiaoman looked at his rough hands doing farm work over the past year and without hesitation, bought 2 large boxes. Afterwards, we arrived at the area selling dry seasoning sauces, where the hot pot base was on sale. A large bag of 29.9 was available, with flavors including spicy, tomato, and mushroom. The salesperson placed 3 pots in front of them, each with different flavors of soup base, and inside were some hot pot ingredients strung together with bamboo skewers. Although the siblings don't know what the hot pot base is, the dishes and meatballs cooked inside are so delicious. Especially for spicy flavors, although it hurts to have your tongue after eating, it makes you want to take 1 bite or 2. The siblings bought a bag of 1 flavor and planned to cook it for themselves when they got home. They were then introduced by a salesperson to the hot pot section and bought some ingredients for hot pot cooking. I haven't seen instant noodles before. Buy them. Canned seafood, fruits, and meat look delicious. Buy it. Various packaged sausages and ham sausages. Buy. Soy sauce, cooking wine, soybean sauce. Buy. Buying and buying all the way. When the news of closing the store came on the radio, the 2 shopping carts pushed by the siblings were full. Quickly run to the exit to check out, and by this time there are not many customers waiting to check out. Although there was no need to queue, the 2 cars of the siblings were tied up for more than 10 minutes. Coming out of the supermarket, carrying 7 big bags, the siblings rushed back home. At this moment, the house was pitch black and out of sight. Lin Xiaoman took out the outdoor lighting he had bought at the supermarket, gently pushed the switch, and the whole room was lit up, much brighter than oil lamps. Lin Eru exclaimed twice, "Sister, this is really amazing. It says that by exposing ourselves to more sunlight during the day, we can keep the lights on. In the future, when we build new houses and build high courtyard walls, we will replace them with this type of lamp." Lin Xiaoman silently put the sanitary pad he bought into the cabinet and turned around to answer, "Okay, put 1 in 1 corner of the wall. In the future, if you order this while reading, you won't be afraid of developing short-sightedness like LV Fuzi." Since going down the mountain, Lin Xiaoman hasn't had a bite of rice yet, so he decided to have a good meal of hot pot. Although I only tasted a few in the supermarket, it was so delicious that my sister and brother would not forget it for a long time. Therefore, I bought double-dot flavor hot pot for cooking hot pot in the supermarket. Bring the tile stove that is kept warm in the winter at home. Boil water in the pot, add spicy butter as the base, and add tomato and hot pot as the base. Before it was cooked, I smelled a strong aroma mixed with a pungent smell. My siblings smelled the fragrance so close that they were choked by the pungent smell on their faces and sneezed several times. End of this chapter.